Ms. Matthews. You all for coming tonight. I'd like to call this meeting of the Columbus County Board of Education to order. If you would, please, those of you that are willing and able, please stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Gentlemen, you have before you the final agenda for tonight's meeting. I need a motion to approve that agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long.
Second.
Second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion on the agenda? All right. All in favor of approving the final agenda, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You have before you minutes from our June 3rd meeting as well as our June 18th meeting. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Motion by Mr. Coleman, second by Mr. Enzer. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Phipps, public comments. Folks, one quick thing about public comments. We don't call names. We don't name people. We talk about programs and we talk about schools. So if at any time we mention a name or call out a name, I will stop you and ask you to stop your public comments. Okay?
Even if the name is supportive, it's a supportive comment about a particular name?
With our policy is that.
I'll work around it.
All right.
Superintendent Beck and members of the Columbus County Schools Board of Education. My name is Fuller Royal, and I just retired from teaching after 8 wonderful years at East Columbus Junior Senior High School, which gives me more than ample license to present what I'm about to say. I'm here tonight to voice my support for friend and former colleague, the soccer coach. It is my understanding that after 9 years of dedication to East Columbus Junior Senior High School women's and men's soccer programs, this coach is being removed as coach of the boys' teams. I feel like this is a huge mistake. I first met the coach when I joined the East staff in 2016. I was immediately taken with his intellect, his demeanor, and his sense of humor. I was also impressed with his professionalism, his sincerity, and his compassion for teaching and coaching. But the two things about him that have stayed with me the most throughout our friendship have been his loyalty to the school and his devotion to its soccer program. In countless conversations, he has talked about his plan to work only at East. He and his wife settled into their home at Lake Waccamaw years ago. He is one of the few East teachers who actually lives in the East Columbus district. He will begin his 10th year at East this fall, and that is significant because we live in a world of 1- and 2-year teachers who don't stick around very long. I've personally been asked twice by administrators and/or board members of adjacent school systems if I thought he would ever consider jumping ship, and I've always told them emphatically, no, he has made a home at East. He has created a marvelous soccer program working with players in and out of season. He knows his players, their families, and their backgrounds. He volunteers in the community to keep youth soccer active and vibrant, training his players early, long before they reach high school. He has gone the extra mile and will continue to do so if allowed. There are scores of students, male and female, who have benefited from his understanding of the game and of its potential for positive effects on his players. More than being a coach, he is a moral compass, always setting the example of what good sportsmanship is and what proper coaching looks like. As I said at the beginning, allowing his arbitrary removal to stand would be a real mistake, sending the wrong message to staff, students, parents, and the community at large. I encourage you to grant his appeal and allow him to continue to do what he does well at East. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Royal. Who do we have next?
Next on the list is Danielle Danez. The same applies. You cannot use names or
Okay.
references to teachers, only positions and programs.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Danielle Danois. I'm a small business owner and sponsor of the soccer program at East Columbus High School. My son has played soccer since he was 4 years old. Over the last 12 years, we've traveled all over North Carolina to watch our son play and excel in the sport that he loves. In 2023, we made the decision to move here to Columbus County. My son was a junior in high school. We knew this would be a rough transition away from the only school district and friends he had ever known. I called the school in February of 2023 and was transferred to the soccer coach. He answered every question that I had regarding the school and the soccer program. He was excited and encouraging, sharing his own life experiences of moving around in his own high school years. At the first day of soccer tryouts, he met my son at the gate and welcomed him. This soccer coach was pivotal in making my son's transition to East Columbus High School and this soccer team seamless and smooth. He has encouraged my son to be a leader, and I have seen incredible growth, not only in his skill level, but also as a young man. Our soccer coach is not only a coach. He is a mentor, a team builder, a confidant to many, if not all, of these boys. But most importantly, he is helping us as parents to raise men and not boys. These men will go on to join the workforce in our community and possibly even our education programs. He leads by example. Several of these boys, including my own, volunteer their time after their own soccer practices and coach rec soccer programs, of which my younger children are involved in as well. They have seen their coach take time away from his own family to share his love and passion for soccer and are following his lead. My husband and I are so thankful for this man. We know the importance of having strong, godly men surrounding our sons and rising up with us to help guide them into adulthood. To imagine this program running without him at the helm would be a tragedy, not only for my son this year being a senior in high school, but also the children that I have coming up through this school district in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
That completes the list of public comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all. Thank you for the community support, and we certainly appreciate your taking the time out to express to us how you feel. All right? So thank you. All right. So we'll move on. Special presentations and recognitions. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir.
We need to swear in our new superintendent.
I can have his family step up. I've experienced somebody with the same name as me. First time.
Yep.
You'll put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand for me, Mr. Beck. Do you, Jesse E. Beck II, so solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are and may be established for the government thereof, that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, and that you will faithfully discharge your duties for your office as superintendent, so help you God do you. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Jess, you gonna wait around till the end of our meeting to get all that signed?
Yes, sir. We got signed.
I thought you were gonna stick around with us all night. All right, congratulations, Mr. Beck.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, curriculum, instruction, and accountability.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, first on the agenda, we have review and action on the contract with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the Division of Child Development and Early Education. All of that being said, that is our annual pre-K contract that the board needs to approve. It's for a total of $819,957 for Columbus County Schools. The total contract is for $2,041,395, but that includes Wyville City Schools as well as the local daycares. There was a decrease of $72,563 in our allotment, and that was because of the Rescue Plan Act ending, so that funding has gone away.
Okay. Any other changes or anything big?
No, sir.
I didn't,
Standard contract.
okay. So,
Okay. All right, so, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the board approve the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Division of Child Development and Early Education contract for the 2024-2025 school year.
you've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the contract with North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Division of Child Development and Early Education for the 2024-2025 school year. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Long, second by Mr. Coleman. Any discussion?
I would, short thought, 72,000, does that affect anything at our,
No, we expected that. We were actually able to utilize that for transportation funding this year, so we have made adjustments, and we will make sure that we monitor that closely.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have review and action on contract services for the Exceptional Children's Program for the 2024-2025 school year. There is a list. Would you like for me to go through those one by one, or would you like to approve them all at one time?
I'd say we approve them all at one time since it is for exceptional children's.
Okay, just some information for your purposes. The PCG, which is A, that's a new program, that's for a 504. 504 programs are BIPs and the functional behavior assessments. Last year, we were contracted with special programs, which is through Power School, so this is a new entity, and it is actually cheaper than our previous contract. Barbara Bell B did increase slightly to $210, $215 an hour for psychological testing. C stayed the same. D increased by an amount of $5 per session. E, which is progressive speech, increased to $65 to $67. EDU healthcare is now $70 an hour. That's OT. And then Ms. McCleary stayed the same. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the board approve the contracts for the Exceptional Children Program as explained.
Heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the contract services for exceptional children's programs for 2024-2025 school year. What's the pleasure of the board?
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Worley, second by Mr. Enzer. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next we have a review and action of the Columbus County Schools discipline procedures for grades K through 12. I will say that all principals had input in this. The only change is we have removed the COVID protocols and the CDC guidelines per Kim Smith from the Health Department. And again, principals did provide feedback on the procedures for the grades K through 12 for the next school year. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the board approve the Columbus County Schools discipline procedures for grades K through 12.
Heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the Columbus County Schools discipline procedures for the 2024-2025 school year. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion?
I have one question. Are these in order, is this where it's always been? I'm looking at the tobacco products, electric cigarettes and vapes, that as a level 1. And reading through this stuff, some of it, if it's not violent, gang activities and stuff like that, that's fine as level 1, but with the tobacco products, the e-cigarettes and the vapes, is there any way that, I think that's more than possibly a level 1.
Well, I will say that Mr. Thompson and I had that discussion. The principals did have say in this, so this is exactly like it was last school year. We can make a notation of that and certainly discuss that with Dr. Piggott and come back with some information for you.
And the main reason is because your vapes and things like that, they're able to get other than tobacco and nicotine in those things, and
That is correct.
it's a problem.
That is something that we
And I
can.
would like, I would like to see us do something more than just a level 1 on that if we could.
We'll certainly notate that, and we will get back in touch.
Does guidance come from the state related to the disciplinary as well, or is it pretty
Well,
much
it's
up to
pretty
the
much
district?
LEA. You stay within the restraints of what the LEA puts in place. So it's pretty much an LEA decision,
Okay.
unless it's a valid offense. Then, yeah, it falls under law.
Okay.
Both of you guys were principals. Yeah, and unless you're not looking at social media whatsoever, this bullying case down in Mississippi has taken the whole world by storm. Is 3 days of ISS or 1 day of out-of-school suspension enough for first offense of bullying?
So I would say, Mr. Chairman, that of course it depends, because, bullying is a buzzword. So
Of course it is.
Right, so it is left up to the principal to investigate that. You also remember that we do have, right at the top, it's at the discretion of the school principal and/or designee, so that could also relate to Mr. Coleman's response as well. But again, we'll talk with Dr. Piggott about that. My answer would be.
Come on up.
You saw me.
There, okay.
You slipped in
You're
the back
hiding,
door.
you're hiding back there. We do leave that up to the discretion of the principal based on the severity of the claim and whether
Right.
it has been substantiated or not. But we take it very seriously, as Dr. Piggott will say.
And I'm asking a question. I'm not trying to trip anybody up.
Right.
I'm just asking a question. Do we need to, and I understand that there are different levels of bullying. Do we need to leave that to the discretion of the principals? Because anytime you leave something to the discretion of principals, you open yourself up for different interpretations.
Right.
And,
So what typically happens
okay,
is when it's left up to their discretion, at some point in time, they will involve law enforcement.
okay.
They definitely contact Dr. Piggott. If there's any question, my experience, and Mr. Thompson will probably, agree with that. It's my experience that if there's any gray area or concern, Dr. Piggott is contacted, and that's been the consistent process that we've had in place forever, as long as I can remember. So it is definitely looked at with a critical eye. So it would be, in my opinion, for them to look at it lightly. I think that would be definitely the exception to the rule, and we could not afford for that to happen.
Right. And that's my concern. And like I said, I'm not trying to trip anybody up. I just, knowing the current thing that's going on nationwide.
Yes. And if I may kind of address that question,
Sure.
but if I may just kind of regress and speak back to Mr. Coleman's concern with the vaping and the e-cigarettes, if we could start there and move back
Sure.
to that issue, if appropriate. So first and foremost, we acknowledge under substance abuse and mental health that it is truly an addiction. No matter how you look at it, it could be chewing tobacco or any other type of mechanism. We do not take lightly, and we know that those devices like vapes, those electric types of items, kids can put all kinds of other illicit substances into that. So what we first do is we bring in, and that's why it has been a typical progression of communication, first and foremost with the parent, acknowledgement of that such, then seeking to see if they are willing to receive services and assistance, because suspending them or putting them out for multiple infractions, because it's kind of a challenge. It doesn't resolve the matter because we'd like for the student to get help, if the parent, of course, has to sign on and agrees to it. Of course, if it is an illegal substance, and in many cases we've had some situations like that, we would always include and wrap into our juvenile partnership, which would include but not limited to our resource officers and/or our Department of Juvenile Justice for intervention services. So that then opens up an additional line of resources for the student. We do have current, and you all have approved, we have Community Support Agency, Coastal Horizons, and also we have Port Health that has been very willing, if parents have agreed, to immediately take, they do the assessments, testing, and then we screen. So that has been a layer of not only a punitive piece, but also a preventative supportive piece so that the student can get help. We want them back in school. We want them to be as healthy as they can be. Of course, they bring exceptions to the rule with major substance issues, clearly without any question whether or not it's a level 1, 2, or 3. It automatically jumps the board to law enforcement involvement, and then they take lead of that. If possible, yes, sir.
Before I say anything, I can appreciate the fact that nicotine is an addiction issue. Understand that totally. But we also can't allow people to continue to use that term as a crutch, too. We have rules.
Yes.
And if we can't follow the rules, then we need to do things.
Yes.
Take the steps necessary.
Absolutely.
So,
in an agreement with that statement and 100% support that, we do not condone it.
right,
And I want to make that perfectly clear.
right. Oh, yeah,
So with that,
I have no doubt
absolutely,
about that, Dr. Wayne.
They would just align, and where we have leveling components of it, the reasons why that was put in place is part of that partnership that we had and the leveling system with Raise the Age. And there was a recent document, and some things will be coming shortly from the Center for Safer Schools and the Department of Public Safety, addressing some other things that may require us to do some things differently. But the leveling made it a little bit more succinct for the flow, just kind of in structure. And we don't across the board, because we need to keep a safe, healthy environment for our students to support their educational processes. Regarding the question that you had as far as with the bullying, first and foremost, when any parent or any concern is made to our attention administratively, if it were Prince, when I just kind of referenced Mr. Thompson having just come out of that helm, there is communication, and we first have conversation with it, we investigate, but we don't just leave it at the discretion of the administrator. When there is information, we may put a pause to do further deep dives. We utilize some of our pieces of, as far as electronic devices, if we have cameras and things, to look into it, get clearances when we're looking with younger children to, because again, our staff, if we have reasonable doubt and suspicion, we can ask those questions. And then at that point, if we feel it needs to take a step further, we always make it available to the parent and involve the parent in that process. All parents, be it perpetrator or the accused person. So with that, we do have them, they can speak with our school resource officer, and that's normally, if it's going to take it to the next level, the Sheriff's Department has always been very supportive of allowing our school resource officers to have that line of conversation with both parties. And sometimes decisions are made because they cannot make a clear, definitive decision that they will be assigned a juvenile petition. And then it is taken on both cases further to the Department of Juvenile Services through DPS.
Okay. I appreciate the detailed explanation, I really do. It's just, you know.
And it's very, we take all concerns, threats, and complaints seriously.
Exactly.
Bullying is a major, harassment is big, and never to dismiss equally the substance, because our kids are, the children, parents send their kids to us so that we can educate them. And we need them to be safe in all aspects of that environment.
Absolutely.
And if our principals, you know, if this was a first violation and they went through that process and it was severe, it certainly would not be on the first violation level. It would escalate quickly.
Sure. You know, I've got an issue, and it's my issue. I will voice it. I don't expect either of you or you to act on it. I have an issue with a child who is defending themselves from a bully getting the same level of discipline that the bully themselves get. I've got a major problem with that, and I don't know how you differentiate it. And like I said, I don't expect you to solve it right now, but I've got an issue with that, and I think every other board member up here does. So,
One thing that I will like to add on the vapes and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
A few years ago, Mr. Stephen Worthington done a presentation at our middle schools on drugs.
Yes.
The different types that were coming in, and it hasn't been done in a while. And it would be great if we could, you know, somehow reach out and partner to try to get a updated version, and not only to the middle schools, but to the high schools too. You know, we've had situations to where children come in and they eat a couple gummies and eat too many, and then you have an issue there. And then also I know we have anti-bullying campaigns and stuff like that, but the possibility of having a few assemblies based on, you know, the bullying, what it consists of, because, you know, I don't like that word because it gets took out of context sometimes, but, you know, in this day and time and the mental health issues that we face with everyone, I just think, you know, awareness and being, you know, at the forefront of proactiveness is probably where we need to be in this day and time, to say the least. But I appreciate all the hard work that you do and all the hours you spend working on this stuff, and you do a good job.
Thank you. We appreciate you all support. It's not easy.
thank you for
not
stepping up into the hot seat
Not a
tonight.
problem.
So,
Not
I have a
problem.
question also, but mine's not nearly as serious. Attendance. Just because of the situation I've been involved with for the last couple of years, we have an attendance issue with a second grader, and we're going to send them home. To me, that's just rewarding the parent for keeping them out, because the parent's the one not bringing a second grader. That second grader has no option of whether it goes to school or not. So we're going to send them home for a day or two, depending on what it is, because you know they're going to choose the one day out of school. That's just another day.
And you're talking
And I don't know what you do. I'm like Ronnie
Well,
about them. I don't have a clue what you do about it, because we all know what attendance problems are today.
well, I almost think we need a separate conversation about chronic absenteeism.
Well, and I was getting ready to say, we identified that last year as one of
Yeah.
our major issues.
Right.
But then again,
I
you
think
do-
that's the number one issue facing every school system right
Yes.
now.
yes, sir, I agree.
That and
And,
discipline,
you know,
those two.
That and
you also have
discipline.
tardies skipping class, leaving off campus without permission. So, I mean, those things have to be addressed in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So,
And
Well, now, if it's a 12th grader, it's
right.
a totally different story.
Than a second grader.
Than a second grader.
Right.
But, you know, to me, we're just rewarding the parent.
And I will say this, that we have had some truancy cases in the last few months
Yeah.
too. So there have been some truancies handed out. So,
And Dr. Piggott and her staff have worked exceptionally hard to make that happen. And I do think that that will make a difference, and I think that will lead us into the right direction.
right.
We have just as to note, and I know that we never like to be in the paper, but we gladly took that one because it sent a message
Yeah.
that we are serious. And we currently, as we speak, even throughout the summer, we are still in court. We attended the teen court session. John David was part of that. They have a priority tier. Truancy is not, I'm not saying priority, but in the scheme of things, I think traffic is revenue-based. So with that, we do have a wonderful relationship with the Department of Juvenile Justice. So that entire team, along with Judge Chandler, and we have a meeting scheduled September with him to kind of look at some additional avenues that he, from his office, sitting in the seat as the judge, can support us. We have tried this, but we'll just keep biting the bit. We've had difficulties, and we're trying to work through some issues where maybe our school resource officers could potentially serve petitions, because we have some cases that are prolonged because they're not able to be served, or the priority given to the Truancy Matters are kind of put, you know, a little tier over to the left. But those are some work in progress. So at least we have some people at the table that have acknowledged the concerning issue. And we will continue to be in court.
Yeah,
and
let's
holding
kinda-
parents accountable
Right.
for having their
Right.
children. Because like you said, Mr. Long, younger children don't have a choice. They rely on their parents to make sure that they're
That's
there.
correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pickett.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? I think we've beat that horse.
She's laying down.
Yep, the horse is laid down now. All right. All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Ancillary services? Auxiliary services, I'm sorry.
Auxiliary services, yep.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we would like to review the 2023-24 school bus maintenance report findings. 2023-24 findings, Mr. Avant reported to us the inspection results. We had 2 buses that were parked, realizing that there are about 400 different reasons that you can park a school bus, and they're not all major. And luckily for us, none of them were major, but the 2 buses that were parked, one was an emergency exit window buzzer. When you lift the handle, the buzzer did not go off, and the funny thing, I guess, would be that Mr. Green himself actually walked these buses the day before the inspection and checked all emergency windows and latches, and they all worked, but the day that he come and inspected the buses, the buzzer was not working at that time. And since have we been to the bus, and the buzzer works again, so it's just one of those days. The second bus that was parked had a loose screw in the handrail. As you're entering or exiting the bus, the handrail that's on the front had one loose screw. I think there's 6 screws in that, and there was one of them that was loose, and so that is a parkable offense. So those are the 2 buses that were parked. Both issues, of course, have been resolved since the inspection. We spoke directly, Mr. Beck and I spoke directly with Mr. Avant. He did want to brag on Mr. Green and our ladies and gentlemen at the bus garage. He said they were doing a fantastic job. If you'll look on page 5 in your notes if you have time, he did make one recommendation, and that's number 6. That was a reimbursement of state funds by local funds. That was one of the recommendations. That there was an error there. He actually asked Mr. Green to send him 3 months of extra transportation TD-19s. So Mr. Green did that, but what he meant to ask was that Mr. Green send him 3 months of all TD-19s. So he made this recommendation after he sent the report back to Mr. Green. Mr. Green then contacted him where he realized he had made a mistake. We sent him the information. He said he would be replying in writing to correct his mistake. So our score for this year is 42.6. I do want to say that that is down from 2020-21. We were at 102.5 and we're down to 42.6. So remember, bus inspections are like golf. Okay, so
The
the
lower
lower the
score,
score,
the
the better. So I know when we see 42.6,
Exactly.
we kind of panic from time to time, but that actually is a really good score. And Mr. Avant wanted to brag on our crowd at the bus garage. So
Why did they compare us to the central region?
I'm not sure why.
We're not in the central part of the state.
No, and that is
Sand Hills, of course, and I
Right.
have no clue why they compared us to the central. I do know that compared to the state, I think the average state was 34.21%.
Yeah.
So we're headed in the right direction for sure, and it's our goal to get to at least the average of the state.
And we have come a long way since 2021.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
I remember this same report in 2021.
so.
All right,
Do we have to approve that or not?
we don't have to approve
All right,
anything.
So
It's
I got
just-
one more question then. Have they got their computer programs updated? I know when me and Mr. Irvin came on board, we did views, went around with all of these to the bus garage, And a lot of their stuff was ancient when it comes to record keeping, and it seems like there was some mention in here about record keeping and,
So they're still using the TIM system.
okay.
And yes, it is ancient, so it works, and they're very efficient in utilizing that program, but it is an older program.
So do we have any plans to,
Well, that would be the state.
really? Okay. And they use the same system for parts and reimbursement schedules and all that? The state requires everything on that?
We do have a system for the inventory and the parts, but I cannot recall the name of it. Mr. Jones, B-SIP.
B-SIP.
Yep, that's it, B-SIP.
Now, is that new? It seems like maybe that was that parts and inventory he was overhauling at that particular time when he took us through. There was something in there that he was trying to.
But both of those programs have been with us for a while. I do know one thing with the inventory in my discussion with Mr. Green was there were some figures, like the cost of the filter was wrong within the system, so they corrected that, and then that fixed that issue that they found with the inventory. But no, we've had those two programs for quite a while.
And when Chris and I went out there, I know it was before their changes, the modifications to was it mainly offices, or was it for the inventory where it would be better as far as like the changes that they made out of the bus garage?
I didn't catch the first part of that, Mr. Enzer.
Was it the changes that they made, like for the office space and different things that they've made, does it include inventory too? How
Yes.
they store their
Space.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And you know, we're in the process of constructing a new facility for the inventory, so that will make
Yeah.
things much better.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
So, Mr. Jones, review of information on scrib order.
And while we're looking at this, I did put a link. I thought it was just easier for you to see how another school system is doing this. And my mom always told me, start with the good news first. And the good news is this is free. So do we need to go ahead and vote on this, or you want to hear more about it? Transcripts. And I'm talking primarily transcripts of students who have graduated a year ago, or in the case of today, 30 years ago. How it's working now is somebody walks in the building, and maybe they get sent up here, or maybe they walk in here, we send them there. If it's been in the last 10 years or so, that's stored in PowerSchool, so it can be printed off, but that's still a person taking that time to do that. If it's not in the last 10 years, if it's upstairs or stored at a school, a copy has to be made and then handed. So there's obviously, some labor involved, and it's pretty complicated, especially if people have to come in and go to multiple places to get what they need. So what Scrib Order does to fix that is it allows a secure system where people can request transcripts online and then get them online in a secure manner. It also allows people who, like third parties, employers, in some cases lawyers, can also provide the proper paperwork, which then allows them to get a transcript. So what it basically does is take all the work we're doing with people and puts it online for Scrib Order to handle. If it is not digital, so if it's before 2013 or so, it is a little simpler for us because although we do have to make a copy, we upload it to the system and it goes to that person. So the person's still not coming in the building. And the free part is, it is $5 that we keep. So we're actually making a little bit of money back on this labor, and then Scribbles keeps $5, and those are for former student transcripts. Now, if it's a third party, like today, I had a business call, kind of cold call. They wanted a transcript from 1977. We would keep $5 of that, and then the company would be charged $25 for a total of $30, and all that comes through Scrib Order. This is becoming the way that transcripts are handled across the state. The number, I won't give you the exact number, but it's in the 3/4 of the school districts are using Scrib Order, and of course the one that I gave you a link to is just right down the road. So that's the idea. The reason that we wanted to bring this to you is because we wanted you to be aware, first of all, that this is something that has to be taken care of when people walk in the building because we're about customer service, right? But the other thing is anytime we're charging money, we want you to be aware of it. We would not charge current students. And you have any questions?
So what about the paper copy ones? Have you got to upload every one of these, or just when you request it, are you gonna go and upload?
So good question. So Scribborder takes all of the existing Power School transcripts and they upload them. They actually have permission to do this from Power School. They upload it en masse for free and they do updates. They do not, unless you pay for a lot more, they do not scan en masse the paper transcripts. What happens is exactly what I did today. Went upstairs, found one from 1977, and the difference, instead of me making a copy and putting it in an envelope and sending it, would be I would scan it, upload it to the company would get the funding, and then send our part to us, deposit our part to us. So that's the difference. The one good thing is if somebody requests it from 1977, they need it again, it will be stored. So that is the one good thing.
How far back do our records go electronically now?
I think it's 2012, 2013, I think is what we have backed up. So anybody who would request that, there'd be no human intervention. Like 2013, you request a transcript, that's all taken care of on Scribble side. A secretary doesn't have to take a call. We don't have to deal with it. And the person gets it usually, if they can provide the documentation, they get it within 6-10 minutes.
Just don't let any of these guys get a copy of mine.
When I was looking at that 1977 one, he still owed for a library book. I was like, can we get interest on that? No. So we just wanted you to be aware of it. This is something we'd like to do if it's something you think is a good idea and you're okay with the pricing structure.
So you mentioned that Power School is okay with this, the state's okay with this, there's no legalities, nothing that we're a problem with?
No, as a matter of fact, it's in some ways a little more secure because it's a very secure portal versus emailing or even sometimes snail mailing an actual transcript. So it's very secure, and they've got it figured out how, especially if it's a third party, you have to submit documentation that's been released by the person's transcript who owns it before it can be put into the system. So we feel good about it. We vetted that piece of it because that's, security is always a big concern. But they seem to have it figured out, and we feel comfortable with it. And of course, their track record has been pretty much vetted out throughout the state.
I would think universities actually would use it too. Like, for instance, if you get your transcript from university, it's going to have on there that you graduated from West Columbus High School.
And it's a lot easier than picking up the phone or emailing the guidance counselor,
And I do want to piggyback off of what Kelly said. I've received about 5 to 6 calls today, and 2 of them was wanting their shot records. The health department is referring them to us for their shot records. So this would be very beneficial.
And they can be released, with the proper documentation through this shot records. Most records that are part of the school cumulative file can be released with the right permission.
Do we need to take action on that to approve it?
No, because it's already, do you want them to approve?
I think we
us
should because
using
it's going to mean money coming in.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the board approve Mr. Jones' proposal for the use of Scribborder, which is at no cost to us.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve Mr. Jones' request for use of Scribborder. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Enzer. Any further discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we would like to review and act on the à la carte prices, child nutrition, product bids, and meal prices for the 2024-25 school year. The prices at this time will remain the same as they were in 2023 and 24. Our pre-K-12 students' breakfast and lunch will be at no cost to the student. Second lunch meal will be at a cost of $2.50. The adults will pay the à la carte price which you have with you. Again, all prices remain the same as they did in the previous year. We sent out bids to 3 different companies, Gordon Food Services, U.S. Foods, and Cisco was awarded the bid again this year. Actually at a savings, believe it or not, of about $17,000. So the actual cost of the food storage and delivery went up a little, but the cost of supplies went down. So we saved about approximately $17,000 from last year to this year.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the à la carte prices, child nutrition product bids, and meal prices for the 2024-2025 school year.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the à la carte prices for child nutrition and meal prices for school year 24-25. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Coleman,
Second.
second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion? I think we're great as fine, as long as we're staying the same, so, and we're still saving money. All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, next on the agenda, we have general items. We have review and action on an overnight out-of-state field trip request for South Columbus High School choral piano to New York, April the 10th through the 13th, 2025. The transportation, they will be using a bus. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the overnight out-of-state field trip request for South Columbus High School choral piano to New York on April 10th through the 13th, 2025.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent that we approve the overnight out-of-state field trip request for South Columbus High School, chorale and piano to New York City, April 10th through the 13th of 2025. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Worley,
Second.
second by Mr. Long. Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next on the agenda, we have review and action on the school resource officer agreement for the 2024-2025 school year. That total is $841,293.68. It's an increase of $61,221.35. I have received some additional information from the Sheriff's Department. I talked with Officer Bryan. They do have in their budget some money to pay for the middle school SROs for extracurricular activities, and they are willing to pay for 2 high school SROs for extracurricular activities, and then any additional, the 2 high school SROs would be at a flat rate. Any additional SROs above 2, the Sheriff's Department would pick up. So I did receive that information just recently.
Okay.
So I don't know if the board wants to, table this until we can get that agreement in
Yeah.
writing, because it did come to me at a later hour. We can table this and put it on the August board.
I think it probably needs to go on the
Agenda.
August board so it'll all be spelled out.
Correct.
We also, as Dr. Piggott mentioned, we talked about the use of resource officers. I think the 2 of you guys sit down with the sheriff and discuss that, as well as everything else, so, and then bring it back to us in August.
And I did sit down, actually with Dr. Piggott, with the sheriff. We had a wonderful conversation about the current agreement, but at that point in time, we did not have the information for the SROs and
Okay.
extracurricular activities, so we'll be glad to do that.
All right. I'll need a motion to table that until the August meeting.
I recuse myself from this vote.
So
Okay.
moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Enzer, second by Mr. Long. Mr. Coleman is recusing himself. So, any discussion from you guys? All in favor of said motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Note that that was a 3-0 unanimous vote to table it.
Okay?
Okay.
Moving along to finance, Mr. Chairman, we have review of information, it's the North Carolina Department of Insurance, property insurance. That's basically where we paid the property insurance for the district.
Whew.
Number 2 is the North Carolina School Boards Association policy payment. That was for a total of $11,850. And then number 3, the North Carolina School Boards Action Center 24-25 contribution of $3,000 was also paid. So all those are reoccurring costs.
And they don't have to be approved by us.
That is correct, just for informational purposes only.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. We need a motion for closed session.
Can I make one more comment on that?
Sure.
Does I understand this Department of Insurance is our property insurance. Do they give us any guidance on, as to what they cover. I know we've had instances before, and we think we've got something covered, and then it's not, or it's not to the standard that it should be. Do they,
I can get the policy and find out exactly what coverage we do have, so that'll answer your question. And then if there's any concerns that you would like us to look at moving forward, then we will certainly do that.
thank you.
All right. Anything else, guys? Need a motion for closed session.
I move that Columbus County Board of Education go into closed session in ordinance with the open meeting law, General Statute 1433111, A, 1 and 3, to discuss information that is not privileged, confidential, or not a public record, to consult with the attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body.
I have a motion for closed session from Mr. Coleman.
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Long. All in favor of going into closed session, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Thanks.